If we think about how the media initially presented Anthony Fauci, it was not neutral. It was an extremely propagandistic, highly editorialized perspective, almost as heavily editorialized as the example you give from his own self-read home of not mentioning an entire perspective. Now, like the kind of rupture that appears when you see not only a kind of living hagiography of Fauci play out across late night talk shows, emblazoning pins and t-shirts and banners, and like a kind of a particular jocularity that disgusts me when people go, is it okay to find Anthony Fauci sexy? That was the bit where I was like, I'm so grateful, man, that I suppose ultimately my dislike of establishment power is probably, ultimately spiritual, but perhaps germanely psychological and then political. Like me, because I don't trust authority, like that was the first thing it hit in me, is why are we being told all of this so enthusiastically? This doesn't seem right. And by the time it got to the sort of the kick line of syringes with Colbert, and Colbert will go out to bat hard against Bobby Kennedy, it starts to make you realize that we're living in this sort of extraordinarily inverted culture where someone, by all accounts, who is not neutral, but I don't want to be reductive because he's a child of the Lord, etc., but someone who is villainous, like Fauci, is portrayed as heroic, and someone who's heroic, like Bobby Kennedy, is portrayed as villainous. Where might we go now with a whole host and raft of other stories that are attributed to the same space that we now have sketched out and recognised? Now, on that point, you said right at the beginning that the sort of terrorism paradigm was ultimately used to strip civil liberties, and the COVID paradigm strip civil liberties. Now, I wonder how long we can continue to regard them as civil liberties, like to sort of to dance around some of George Carlin's analysis, who would say, where do you get these rights from? Where are these inalienable rights coming from? Who could ever grant anybody rights? What is the sovereign force, the irrefutable universal principle that no one can deny, that means that human life is sacred, for example, or that we ought revere nature, not because it's a resource, but because we're sort of part of it and have a role to play with it. I wonder, Jenna, now that you've sort of and I recognise you've got another part coming out for your film, and I'll be excited to see that too. When you like you mentioned Epstein, but do you start thinking, well, what do you think is going on with the suicide of was it Bruce Ivans? Do you start to think, wow, well, I wonder what the truth is with, say, the Clinton kill list, and I wonder what the truth is when it comes to some of Assange's reporting, and I wonder what the truth, like, do you start to feel a kind of an unbridled embrace that, oh my God, all of this stuff is potentially open. And when, right, and I'm saying this because of what you declared about yourself culturally at the beginning, i.e. of the left, when and where do you look at, say, David Icke and Alex Jones and say, well, where do I not go that they have gone? Where do I not go that they have gone, given that basically everything we've said so far, David Icke or Alex Jones would have told us like in 1980.
Right, but they also have said a lot of other things, right? And so in this world, you can't trust anything. In fact, I will tell anyone listening or watching this, do not trust me, okay? Challenge me, okay? Level an allegation that I am doing the work of some evil party to mislead you, and then stumble upon the truth that you find that has merit, and let's talk once you've done that. I'm willing for anyone, especially people who come from the left or who are part of the Democratic Party, to challenge this narrative and act as if I was funded by a super PAC, which I was not. And we live in a world right now where you mentioned these people, shock jocks and from for all of time, and people who really actually, sometimes touch on these nerves that are highly, factual and are really transmitting truth about some very hard topics. We live in a world where our intelligence service utilizes this format to create chaos and information. And there is so much information now that it is almost part of our human behavior that we would have to emotionally evaluate this information as if it is coming from a stranger or an enemy, or if it's coming from a friend or an ally. And it is in that space that intelligence agencies, the great, evil, powerful forces that want to abuse the regular people, that they do their best work. Because the fact that there is so much information out there and the fact that there's so much misinformation about COVID specifically, or about anything else, fill in the blank, that someone, a regular person, is overwhelmed by that and will make an emotional decision about the information they're going to consume. They will choose to follow these 3 or 4, 10, 15, 150 people. Their algorithm will be created. They will watch this station, and therein lies the real dirty work, because all of that is part of the game theory that exists at the very top. And I don't mean the top of our government. I don't mean the president of the United States. I mean the folks that are more powerful than the president of the United States and the United Nations and any president of any country. The folks who use information to keep us divided, to keep us siloed, to keep us afraid, to keep us suffering from cognitive dissonance, that when we're faced with a truth, that we have been conditioned to accept a reality so different from that, that we feel viscerally affected by it. We feel angry. We want to hurt the person giving us that truth. We don't want to believe them. We actually want to go against our own interests to believe the lies of multi-billion dollar, if not trillion dollar corporate interests that have routinely abused and killed the poor. And this is the story of America from day one. And that is, again, part of our amnesia as a country here in America. I consider myself a patriot. The reason why is because I think in this melting pot, my family's all immigrants. They all, suffered to come here. But there's levels, right? There's that intersectionality of America where there's always a group that was more oppressed until you get, of course, to, African slaves. And that is the great, and Native Americans, which is the great creation myth of our country, is all that bloodshed. But what people don't know is that there was a time when there were white slaves and black slaves, and that essentially there was a moment in history called Bacon's Rebellion. I think it is the most telling story in American history. It was in the late 1700s. Actually, I think it was the late 1600s, excuse me. And this colonialist was upset with the British. No offense, Russell. And he was upset. He was very, very, that was a horrible joke. Please edit that out. So he mobilized these poor white and black slaves, and they took over a town for years as a militia. And the plantation class was so horrified by the reality that these poor, disenfranchised people, these slaves who they relied on, the free labor that they relied on to build their industries, the free labor that built this country, they were so horrified that they intervened. And I don't think it was a master cabal or conspiracy. It was almost like just gravity, like the force of nature, like the way things go when there's this much of a gap in the have and the have-nots. And they created chattel slavery. And they told poor white people that they were better than black people no matter what. When in the reality is that poor people have more in common. 99% of people on the planet have more in common with each other than they do with that fraction of a percentage. And that fraction of a percentage thrives off that 99% of people who actually have common interests, who actually share more life experiences in common than that fraction of percentage. They thrive off dividing the people. And you can watch in American history, that strategy has been repeated over and over and over again. It's Jim Crow, it's the Ku Klux Klan, it's the Southern strategy. And then the flip side is it's the assassination of Martin Luther King, not because he's talking about race, but because he's forming a poor people's movement. That's when he gets assassinated. And by the way, James Earl Ray probably did not shoot him, and that the FBI was likely involved. And this Bobby Kennedy, what the fire in his belly is that two of his family members, his father was assassinated, likely with the cooperation of the United States government. And so was his uncle potentially. And we haven't even declassified those files yet. And so if you look at the story of America and why I consider myself a patriot is because I'm here talking about it, right? We have enough freedoms that I can be on your podcast, and yeah, I can worry about being killed and or doing things. But it comes back to that point I said before. People are more likely to mislead me and get me to publish false information than they are to kill me. The people who get killed are the people who are sitting on, whistleblowers and people who have the cure for cancer or AIDS or the lone reporter in a town down south. People like me don't get killed, they get manipulated. And so who knows what Alex Jones, his back channels have been over the years, but he would certainly be a perfect person to manipulate if you were trying to create misinformation or you were trying to confuse people. And that's no disrespect to him or his platform. I just mean that we cannot trust anything anymore because the game theory at the top is so evolved and so sophisticated that every single thing can be used in a way to benefit the bad actors. Think about this, that all these people committed these frauds and crimes, the pharmaceutical industry, the United States government, our intelligence service, our military, Anthony Fauci, big science across multiple other countries as well. And those bad actors, it was win-win for them. We live in a world where it's lose-lose for 99% of people, no matter how you cut it, and win-win for that fraction of percentage, no matter how you cut it. It's win-win because the game theory and the way they benefit even from chaos, the way they benefit even from crime and fraud and murder is so defined and so predictable that it's going to happen again. And if we don't think another man-made pandemic is coming after this one, we are so fucking asleep. Because if they made this much money and they got that much social control, and when I say they, a big blob, amorphous hydra that you can't kill, if it was so successful for them, we better believe it's going to happen again, and we better fight like hell to prevent it because it's going to be far worse than the last time.
Free speech is under attack, but Rumble Premium refuses to back down. That's why you should use Rumble Premium. Support content creators like me and him and him and him and him. I'm going to say and her, but is there one? And her? Oh. That's good. And her. With major advertisers conspiring to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their back, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. We're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits, grow up, for viewers and creators. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using the promo code BRAND. Visit rumble.com/premium/brand and claim your discount today. Together we can turn the tide, whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching. Your support helps keep free speech alive. Go to rumble.com/premium/brand and use the code BRAND to get $10 off.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.